Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I am Ryan Clifton Bowler, and I want to get right down to it. I want to give my opinion on the celebrated month of Black History. Yes, I want to give my opinion on Black History Month and what I believe about it at this present time in 2022 America. And I want to just read a short definition of Black history from the Wikipedia. Now, I normally don't read the Wikipedia, whatever the case may be. I mean, because I've been hearing that it's not the best source of information. But on the other hand, it does have some scholarly articles in it. So I think that should be suffice for now. I'm going to read you just a small portion of this, and then you can look the rest of this up on your own. And then I'm going to give you my opinion on Black History Month. The heading is Negro History Week 1926. The precursor to Black History Month was created in 1926 in the United States when historian Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History announced the second week of February to be Negro History Week. This week was chosen because it coincided with the birthday of Abraham Lincoln on February the 12th and that of Frederick Douglass on February the 14th, both of which dates Black communities had celebrated together since the late 19th century. For example, in January 1897, school teacher Mary Church Terrell persuaded the Washington, D.C. School Board to set aside the afternoon of Douglas' birthday in February to teach about his life and work in the city's segregated public schools. And this became known as Douglas Day. Interesting. The thought process behind the week was never recorded, but scholars acknowledge two reasons for its birth, recognition and importance. In 1915, Woodson had participated in the Lincoln Jubilee, a celebration of the 50 years since emancipation from slavery held in Bronzeville, Chicago. The summer-long Jubilee drew attendance from across the county, with thousands of attendees to see exhibitions of heritage and culture, impressing Woodson with need to draw organized focus to the history of Black people, and he led the founding of the ASNLH that fall. Forgive me for these words are pretty small. Early in the event's history, African American newspapers lent crucial support. From the event's initial phase, primary emphasis was placed on encouraging the coordinated teaching of the history of Black Americans in the nation's public schools. The first Negro History Week was met with lukewarm response, gaining the cooperation of the Departments of Education in states of North Carolina, Delaware, and West Virginia, as well as the city school administrations of Baltimore and Washington, D.C. That's all I'm going to read right there. I'm going to read no further than that. I want to get right down to it in my view of that. Now, you guys can go to Wikipedia on your own and read the origins of Black history and so forth. But in my opinion, I don't personally believe, and this is my opinion. So as I said earlier, some of you may agree and some of you may disagree, but this is my opinion. I don't believe that we need Black History Month in America in 2022. I don't believe we need it. And one of the reasons why I don't believe we need Black History Month in 2022 America is because, for one, it continuously promotes division. And I knew this was going to happen. When Black History Month came up with the Democrats in office right now, with Biden in office, and all this liberal rigmarole going on with TV shows and movies and so forth, and this push for Black this and Black that and Black this and Black. I said to myself, when Black History Month comes, my God, they're going to just run crazy with this. They're going to deify Black people like they're the greatest people in the world, and at the same time, going to show them to be victims so that they can keep them on the Democratic plantation. I knew that was going to happen, and that's exactly what's going on right now. Okay? In my opinion, we don't need Black History Month because it's causing more division. And when you add, in my opinion, the Democrats in office right now and the liberal establishment's take on it, it only adds more tension to the whole situation. And that's why I don't believe we need it. We don't believe. Now, I've heard people argue this, and some of the YouTubers say, well, I don't think we need Black History Month because you're going to regulate our history to 1 month out of the year. Okay, you can argue that, but from I'm going to agree with another YouTuber, and I felt the same way, is that Black history is American history. You know, it's American history. A lot of the things that blacks did, and like Frederick Douglass and others that accomplished things in this country, were for the benefit of not just black people, but for the benefit of all Americans, for all Americans. But what is being pushed today in the mainstream liberal media is that blacks are still victims, and that, you know, and that they're still being oppressed, and that there's still systemic racism. That's their classic one, systemic racism. I want to punch them in their face every time they say this is systemic racism. And when you ask them, give me some examples of systemic racism, they never can give accurate examples of present day 2022 systemic racism situations. Gee, I wonder why. If it's really the way you say it is, then how come you can't give any real demonstrations or examples of that? Anyway, I don't think we need it in 2022 America, and also I don't think we need it because it also promotes division within Christian churches. Many years ago, when I was in my early 20s and so forth, my church had Black History Month. Now, let me say this up front. This is what I wanted to say. I almost forgot. I can understand why Black history was initiated many decades ago. I can understand why, because of course we know that there was discrimination, there was systemic racism going on during the early history of America, and a lot of blacks that had accomplished great things weren't being recognized. So these individual groups felt the need to create a kind of like a spot within a year, okay, that would give recognition to these black people of African descent, that would give them recognition and show this is what they did. You know, these are the great accomplishments. It would be beneficial to black people at the time and of today. It would be beneficial for them to know that, to let them know that you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. But it would also have been, as I said earlier, be beneficial to all Americans, because whatever was accomplished with black people at the time was beneficial for all Americans. Let me give you an example of creations of black people in terms of art. Jazz. Jazz was a solely black creation. It was a black creation. If you watch Ken Burns' documentary documentary simply entitled Jazz, excellent documentary on the origins of jazz and how it progressed over time. It's an excellent documentary on jazz. But as one of the jazz commentators said, jazz music is American music, because even though it originated with blacks, it's an American phenomenon. It's for all Americans, because you had white people that adopted it and they began to embrace it as their own, and they began to become great legends in the musical field of jazz. So it's an American phenomenon. Anything created by blacks at the time and now, it's an American phenomenon. It's for America. But right now, the liberal establishment and the Democrats are trying to keep it separate. And that's, like I said, that's one of the reasons why I don't believe we need it. We don't need it because the Democratic, far leftist Democrats and the liberals jump on it and use it as a means to keep us divided. To keep us divided. Everywhere I look, you look at the commercials now. You look at all the commercials, and this is enough. I'm a black man myself, but you look at all the commercials. Just about every commercial, you got all these black people in them now, you know, because these commercials, these producers want to be woke. And so you have all these commercials with all these black people and all kinds of different people in them, okay, which is good. It's good for the actors. It's good for them. But in my heart, I know what they're doing. I know what they're doing. And I don't believe the liberal establishment is sincere. I believe it's a Marxist attempt to keep division in this country, keep blacks and whites and other racial groups divided in order to destroy us and conquer us. I believe that's what it is. I guarantee you, none of these liberals will come out and say we all need to unite as Americans. Being an American has nothing to do with your race or your ethnicity necessarily. Being an American has to do with adopting the values of what makes America great. The Constitution and the freedoms that we have here is one of the things that makes America great. And regardless of what race you are or what ethnicity you are, if you embrace those principles of America, that makes you an American. If you embrace the principles of hard work and independence and going out here and doing what you need to do and setting goals and having an I can do it attitude, those are American principles that stem all the way back to the beginning of America with the great pioneers. Those are American principles. And if, regardless of your race or your ethnicity or your wherever you come from, if you adopt those principles, you are an American. But we have factions within the liberal establishment, far leftist liberal establishment, and yes, I'm naming the liberals because they're the ones, in my opinion, that's keeping the division going. When you have people like that in movies and people like that in politics and in commerce and so forth, and even in religion, when you have people like that keeping the division going, then it doesn't help. All it does is keep the division going and keeps the races and ethnic groups mad at each other and ready to fight each other, which is what I believe their goal is. So going back to that, I don't believe in 2022 America that we need Black History Month. And as I was saying many years ago when I was in my 20s, and I was attending my former church many years ago, we had Black History Month. And I understood, yeah, I got it. But I always felt, even then, I always felt somewhat uncomfortable about it. I always felt uncomfortable about it in my heart because I always felt like if someone white came in and they was listening to all of this, then, I mean, it's like, oh man, that what they call a white guilt. They feeling bad about this whole situation because blacks weren't recognized back in those days for the great things that they did and so forth. And now they feeling some kind of way because the pastors and leaders of the church focusing on accomplishments of black people. Number one, I don't believe Black history should be a part of any church service. Black history, in my opinion, should be something that you study on your own. I don't think it should be in the churches. And that's a whole nother story in myself, but I don't think it should be in the churches. And my church, the church that I'm a member of right now, we don't have it in our church. My pastor don't have a Black History Month. Thank God. Because his philosophy is, if we're going to have Black History Month, by right, we might as well have an Asian month. We might as well have a Chinese month. Might as well have a White History Month, a Chinese month, a Japanese month, a Mexican month, a Puerto Rican month. We got all kinds of different ethnicities and races and groups in this country. Might as well, by right, they can claim the same thing. Now, that could be argued. It could be like, well, they weren't slaves here in America, this, that, and the other. They didn't suffer the oppression and the discrimination that we did. Okay, that could be argued. But my point is simply this. It shouldn't be in the church at all. And we don't need Black History Month, in my opinion, in 2022 America, because we're being bombarded by the mainstream media about blackity black this, black this, black this. Man, if you don't know nothing about Black History Month by now, you ain't gonna never know. You blind as a bat. You blind as 10 bats, in my opinion. So I just want to give you guys my spin on that, what I feel about Black History Month and why I believe we don't need it. It only causes division. In my opinion, it only causes more division. When I go to work, to be quite frank with you, when I go to work, I don't hear anybody hardly talking about it. I don't hear anybody talking about it. None of my employees talk about it. And most of the employees at my job are black. And none of them ever hardly talk about it, or I don't hear them talking about it. And you want to know why? In my opinion, I believe the reason for that is because they got to the point where they feel they don't need it. The vast majority of black people in America are relatively successful. If you ask the average black person, I'm talking about being truthful. I'm not talking about these brainwashed people out here that think, but if you ask the average black person, are you being oppressed right now? Is someone white oppressing you? Is someone white keeping you from being successful in life? The average black person in 2022 America will tell you no. So if that's the case, then what is the problem? What's the problem? Who's stopping you? Who's holding you back from being successful? It certainly isn't them. We're past that right now. So really, this whole thing, all it does is keep the division up, and it's just one of the tools that the liberal left and the Democrats use to keep the division up so that they can keep us on their plantation and keep black people voting for them. Because as long as black people right now collectively believe that they are oppressed, they're going to always vote for the very party, the Democrats, that were the original oppressors of their people to begin with. Anyway, I had to give that. What do you guys think? What is your opinion on Black History Month or whatever the case may be? Leave your comments in the comment section below. If you like this video, press the like button, share this video, and subscribe. God bless you all, and see you again.